Hey everybody, welcome back. First, I'll apologize for the poor lighting in this video. My garage doesn't have the best lighting, and sometimes you just have to deal with what you have. The first thing I noticed when looking at the battery in Lumpy was the lack of labels on the original battery. I had no idea what it was, but I knew it needed to be replaced. And as I began removing the old battery, I noticed that the short cable from the battery to the starter was worn out, and it was pretty bad. Had some exposed wire at each end, so I had to replace that along with the battery. Normally, when I do videos like this, I try to list out exactly what tools I use, what sizes, and one of the things I've learned with older cars like Lumpy is that you can't make assumptions. And what that means is you can't assume that everything is original or to manufacturer specifications. You really don't know what you need until you start digging into the project. So while I try to use original parts, or as original as possible, that doesn't necessarily mean that all the screws, all the bolts, it doesn't mean that it's all original. It just means you're not gonna know what you're gonna need until you get into it. So in this case, I'm pretty sure that the clamp, which you'll see later, that holds the battery down was aftermarket. I vaguely recall the battery clamps in these older cars as more of a screw down at the bottom of the battery tray that, well, I guess actually a bolt that goes through the bottom of the tray and pushes a wedge-like piece of rubber up against the bottom of the battery. So what you see here is more of a handle that gets bolted down from the top, and I'm pretty sure that's not original, but I'm not really worried about it. You'll also see that new cable there on the right that goes from the battery to the starter solenoid, or the starter, whatever that doodad's called over there. That's the new piece that I put in. The old one was pretty banged up. So anyway, aside from that, all the other parts looked original, so I tried to stick with that as much as possible. That's kind of my goal for Lumpy, is to, whenever I can and wherever I can and as money allows, put OEM parts back on it. I know it's been modified. I am okay with that. I think anybody that buys it in the future will be okay with that. I don't expect all of the numbers to match 1000%. I don't expect the car to be a trailer queen or a show car or anything like that. I just hope somebody enjoys it as much as I do. So that's the goal for Lumpy. Kind of a overall goal that I don't know that I've ever talked about before. You know, I don't think I've ever talked about the name either. That's a bit of a longer story. So I've taken a lesson from Casey Neistat and Cody over at Wrangler Star of naming things. Cody names his saws. Casey, well, I don't know if Casey actually names things, but he puts dates on them. So I've started doing that, well, I guess it's been a few years now. Started with my running shoes. I would name my shoes, and since then I've taken to naming just about anything major that I've purchased, and a 1967 Ford Mustang is no exception to that rule. So the car is a very dark green. It's got a little bit of metallic flake in it that isn't original, but the dark green color is fairly close to the original color from 1967. the front grille part of the chrome, the previous owner had hydro dipped to make it look like wood grain. And as I was driving it the first time, I was trying to figure out what to name it, what do I call it, and 1967, if you flip 6 and 7, you get 76, which is very close to 77, which is my, well, the year of my favorite movie, Star Wars. And one of the worst things to ever come out of Star Wars was the holiday special, in which we see Chewbacca at home on his home planet of Kashyyyk with his son, Lumparump or Lumparoo or whatever. Everybody just called him Lumpy. And because the ride home was a little bit bumpy, because of the suspension, and the steering was a little bit wobbly, and it was green, and it had the wood grain up front, I named the car Lumpy. I also knew that my son would really appreciate it. He's a big Star Wars fan too, and sure enough, he's so far been helping me with little bits and pieces here and there. So that's it. I replaced the battery and the cable. Fairly simple project. Took maybe half an hour at the most. That's all I've got for you this time around. Hope you enjoyed. Hope it maybe helped you out a little bit. And until next time, have a good day.